Today we have a meaningful show, though.
This is meaningful. And
Folks,
who's our guest today, Ron?
Today we have Jason David in studio. His experience began in 2006.
Is it David or Davis? David, okay. Okay, Minge, you're fired.
It's the third time he's corrected the name that I've given, and it's always been right. So.
No, actually, it was you who said it. Anyway, Jason, welcome.
Thank you.
Listen, let me tell you a little bit about I was trying to give a little something about this guy.
Fire her.
And you guys, is this your first show?
She's done.
We're doing the applause. Tell the audience to wait. Listen.
Do the applause again now.
Really, we're going to start there today, folks.
He's smiling. He likes it.
All right, well, listen, Jason David.
We want the guests to be happy.
This is about his son. His son, Jaden. When he was 4 months old, they found out that he had a seizure. He had his first seizure at 4 months old, and this grew on to up to 500 a day. And after many years of trying different concoctions of synthetic drugs, Jason got his son some cannabis. And apparently, within the first time he did it, within 4 days, not a single seizure. First dose.
First dose.
So that's amazing. So because of this, he's developed Jaden's Juice, which we'll talk about, which is a CBD tincture, and he's going to talk about how this has helped his son personally with his what's he have? Dravet syndrome.
Yeah, he has Dravet syndrome.
Okay,
well, Dravet syndrome. First of all, welcome.
Yeah, please.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Smooth opening, guys.
Thanks for being here. Now, Jason runs and operates a dispensary, a collective out of Modesto, California,
right?
And they focus on everything, but they're very, very open to treating children, and it is such a pleasure to see someone working with kids, because this is not about just a dispensary and corporate America coming in and selling cannabis.
Someone's actually helping people here, Doc.
I mean, it's actually working towards a goal of trying to help children. It's unbelievable. It's
great. Well, tell us a little bit about your firsthand experience with your son, because that's sort of what got you into this, right?
Starting off with my son, I was blessed to have a son at 4 months old. Christmas morning, started having his first grand mal seizure. It was an hour long. I've never seen anyone else have a seizure before in my life, so it kind of took a toll on me. And then next 4.5 years were hospitals, ambulances, 25,000 pills by the time he was 5 years old, 14 different antipsychotics, different cocktails, withdrawals, every type of seizure you could think of, 42 ambulance rides, you name it. And we went to supposedly the best.
Good Lord.
I don't know. I've never met a doctor that said he wasn't the best.
The best was
scary.
Well, here, I'm not the best.
Can I give you a little information about really what Dravet is from a parent that lives
I
Dravet?
want to hear it. That's what we want to know.
Dravet, I think personally, is this is my personal. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anyone but a father of a child with Dravet. And what I've realized with my own research and experience is Dravet is false. Dravet syndrome is a made syndrome. I would call it more of a called drug syndrome, because they don't know what Dravet syndrome is. That's why they keep on hitting you with 100 different things. We're listening to these doctors that are guessing with all these different pills and not figuring anything out, but making our children worse. I've been to Dravet meetings across the country. I've met Dr. Dravet 3 different times. She doesn't like me. She doesn't when she sees me in a crowd, she doesn't want to answer my questions because she can't. I've asked questions before to doctors is, everything you've ever said about Dravet, every time I've taken away a pill from my son, a part of Dravet has gone away. And I think that my son doesn't have Dravet syndrome. I think my son has drug syndrome. And it's not just my son, it's all the children. When I go to these seminars of support groups across the country, there's 2,000 people there, 1,000 people there, 500 people there, and every kid's the same. They're in wheelchairs dying. Everyone's on 3 different medications, 5 different medications, 4 different medications. They're all on feeding tubes, wheelchairs. Every child I work with that has Dravet syndrome is actually getting out of wheelchairs. They're living, they're not dying. They're seeing hope, they're not losing hope. It's a big difference. And when I bring it up to doctors, some of my own doctors I work with, they straight up tell me when I ask them, I say, every time you say something, you say, this is a part of Dravet syndrome. My question for you is, has there ever been anyone with Dravet syndrome that's ever been studied without the pharmaceuticals? They're all no. Well, the side effects of Dravet syndrome is exactly what side effects of the pharmaceuticals is exactly what Dravet syndrome is.
Awesome.
And they can't answer that. And only one doctor's ever come up to me at UCSF came up to me and said, Jason, the questions you ask are amazing because I don't think anyone can answer them. Another thing no one talks about is 95% of the families that have kids with Dravet syndrome, the parents don't carry that genetic. It's a mutation. Where did it come up out of nowhere? It's a de novo. Where's this all coming from? There's 7,000 different rare gene disorders. There's something going on. Something in the medical system something's wrong. Every day there's skyrocketing the numbers of autism, epilepsy, children with cancer, children with ADHD, ADD, IBS, Crohn's. There's something that's hitting everyone's autoimmune system that's messing everyone up.
No doubt.
Kind of obvious what it is out there. I don't want to throw it out there, but I mean, some people need to start doing some research instead of listening, kind of opening their eyes and seeing what's going on around them. And that's what the problem is. No one opens their eyes anymore. We just listen and we just follow. And that's what I think there's a problem is we need to start opening our eyes. When I go to a doctor's office now is I don't go in there and listen to a doctor. Last time we had an issue at the school district, they called me and said, you have to take Jaden to a specialist for stomach issues, gastro doctor, because Jaden's vomiting at school. So I figured out what it was they were shoving food down his throat, and that's why he was throwing up, because he just started learning how to chew when he was 6 because of all the Topomac, because that's like kind of like cocaine. It makes your mouth numb. It makes everything taste metallic. He didn't chew. He only ate Gerber food until he was 6 years old, pretty much. And then now he's chewing. So he still has to, it's a little bit of assistance you got to put on the right side to make him eat it. So they're shoving down his throat. He was throwing up. They made me go see a gastro doctor. Well, I'm sitting in the office. I'm looking at the office and I see the kids there. There's 2 different kids there, but there's one in general I'm paying attention to. He's sitting there holding his gut and he's crying. And I'm looking at him like, okay, I'm going to do some research. So I went up to the mom. I said, excuse me, ma'am. I said, what's going on with your son? She goes, this is our second time back. We just got a medication from the doctor 3 weeks ago. My son hasn't stopped crying since he got that medication. He's holding his gut. This is what's going on. I go, can you give me the name of that medication? So I Googled it. So I knew what was going to be. It's protocol. They all do the same thing. They give you that first one to everyone the same thing. First 5 seconds we walked into the doctor's office. I have it on my phone. I'm looking at it. First thing I looked up was lawsuits, side effects, withdrawals, and I looked up interactions with the medication that Jaden's on. I also looked up epilepsy, and everything on there said, do not give it to my son. The first 5 seconds we walk in there, I tell him the story about my son, what's going on, Jaden's epilepsy, what medication he's on. He goes, listen, in 5 seconds, no test, nothing, gives me a prescription of that drug. Exactly. I already have it on my phone.
Awesome.
So I turn around and look at the doctor, and I said, Doc, I said, before you give me that prescription, is this the one you're about to give me? And he looks at it, and his mouth drops. So how'd you know? I said, because I do my homework. I'm not like everyone else, and I just don't. Like if I'll go to get my car fixed, I'm gonna look at every other car and see what they're doing to every other car before I go in there. You want to look what's happening in front of you instead of just someone saying I'm the best. Every neurologist in the West Coast is the best neurologist. Everyone everywhere I go is the best neurosurgeon. I've never heard anyone say I'm the worst or I'm mediocre. You know what I'm saying? I want to know with my own with my eyes. I want to see. I want to see it now because I've learned to myself is whatever anyone tells you is not true. I want to see it working. You know, my old doctor at Stanford used to say, I'm the one that wrote the book on epilepsy. My question before we left Stanford was, did you write the book on epilepsy, how to make it worse? Because I've looked at everyone in your office and every kid is dying. So where is it going to get better? So I showed it to the doctor, that one in the office, and I said, look, these are the medication you want to give my son. The first thing it says is don't give it to anyone on benzos. Second thing it says don't give it to anyone on epilepsy. The third thing it says, the first thing on it said may cause seizures. I told you my son has epilepsy. Why would you do that? And before he gave it to me, he told me there was no side effects. I go, you're the doctor and you're telling me this? You think, I swear, I said there's no side effects. I said, you must think I'm stupid. I'm not your typical person coming in here saying, oh, okay, doc. I gave it back to him. I said, listen, man, I said, I'm not going to do your thing. I left. I went back to the school district. I said, hey, you know what? So next time you try to send me to a doctor and try to say that, you know, you just want me to see a doctor or you're going to call and CPS or something like that is make sure it's a good doctor. Make sure it's a doctor that knows more than me. And I'm not trying to say I'm a doctor, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to help on my son. And this is what you have to do these days is you have to fight beyond just listening. And that's what I've learned the hard way with my son, trying to save his life.
This is Jaden. This is not for the squeamish. This is not going to be pleasant to watch. The only upside to this is Jason's fortitude and Jason's desire and unwillingness to give in, and what he has done for his son and what he's doing for other children. Can we please roll this?
Oh my gosh, these are the new seizures Jaden's having. These are new seizures Jaden's are having. These are brain zaps. This is what's happening to my son. Is this fair? Jaden was dying in front of my face. Everyone had given up on Jaden. I went to the last Dravet meeting, and they told us about the magic 3. These 3 drugs that will be magic. It could be magic. It's steripental, Depakote, and clobazam. So you give these to your kids. And this was the last meeting I went to when I was still listening. And then what I realized is after when Jaden was dying was it worked for 4 months. After 4 months, he was straight dying, like literally dying from it. And it was eating his gut, his brain. He was having 1.5 hour long seizures 3 times a day. I had given him 40 shots of Valium in 30 days. I was fighting with my insurance company because they thought I was selling the rectal Valium on the streets. Because they're like, who goes through 40 shots in 30 days? I go, people buy rectal Valium in the streets. Oh, hell yeah, it's a commodity out there. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. I'm trying to save my son's life. So I even almost got in a fight in front of Walgreens trying to walk out with a bag of Jaden's medicine before with some guy on a motorcycle came up, thought I had Norcos or something, trying to harass me. And I was like, we're fighting for it. You know what I'm saying? I'm fighting for my son's my son's poison, actually, not his medicine. And the next thing you know, because he's still addicted to it at that time, I haven't given Jaden a Valium shot in over 3.5 years now. But at that time, the first time I was sitting at home. It was the April night. I remember Jaden was crying for 9 hours straight. I was working 60 hours a week. I didn't have a penny in my pocket. My dad had Alzheimer's. He was dying. I called my mom up one night and said, Mom, I'm putting Jaden in a high chair. Come pick him up. I'm going to kill myself. I can't do it anymore. I'm going to sit in the front yard. Don't even come look. Just go grab Jaden and do what you got to do. I can't do this anymore. No one's helping me. I'm all alone. I'm worn out mentally. I was just by myself, and I was just struggling. And, next thing you know, my mom begged me. Just, everyone has their own faith and hope. I have my faith in God, and she said, "Go to church one more time, and don't let us. If you die, you're the backbone of our family. We're gonna lose our whole family. Please, just try one more time." So I went to a church, and pastor there, I told him the story, and he put us in a circle, and he prayed really hard, and he said, "Don't show Jason a sign in a month. Don't show Jason a sign in a year. Just show Jason a sign today, tomorrow." Well, the first sign he showed, first day I went back to work, and my employees had written a letter. I was working at a jewelry store in the mall for 11 years. I was a manager there, and they wrote me a letter to the president of the company telling me to give time off because they knew I was going to kill. They knew I was worn out mentally. I was running out of the mall every day, chasing ambulances. My son's being called in an ambulance to go. He's dying. Next thing you know, I'm sitting at home the day before I go to a doctor's appointment at UCSF, and I'm writing down all these different things. And on the news, it says this 15-year-old, 16-year-old smoked a joint and helped out his Tourette's. Well, I know not everything I'm looking for Jaden is a neuroprotectant. So and I'm writing down all these different new pharmaceuticals and brain surgeries and all this crazy stuff. The VNS they want to put in my son and do all this crazy stuff to my son that's not normal or natural, not the way that was, the Earth was intended. And next thing you know, I come across when I see that, I start Googling medical marijuana neuroprotectant, and I came across the federal government patent on the CBD 6630507. When I read that, I even found stuff about epilepsy in there, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, so I put that down. And the weird thing on it, that was the 17th number on my list, and Jaden's birthday is the 17th. And I just started seeing signs, and they say if you ask, you will receive. And I felt like it doesn't mean like you're going to receive money. It means you're going to receive a sign. You need to take that and run with it. So I go to my doctor, and I'm asking him, after I go over 16 of the other things, I'm on the 17th one was cannabis. I said, what do you think about medical marijuana? He saw Jaden's the worst case of Dravet I've ever seen. Jaden's the worst case, not just worst case I've ever seen, but he's the worst I've ever seen him doing. I don't think you have much longer left for Jaden's life. I mean, he's having an hour and a half long seizure 3 times a day. Something's really wrong. And at that time, every time I go to call my doctors, they'd always say, this might be Jaden's real sign coming out. Jaden would cry 9 hours a day, have seizures 3 times a day for an hour and a half. And he wouldn't eat, he wouldn't sleep. He was just in pain, suffering, and dying at this time. So I go and get a medical marijuana card. I go to 4 or 5 different dispensaries. They wouldn't even let me in. They were laughing at me when they seen I had a medical marijuana card for a 4-year-old at that time. The next
you got a card in his name, not in your own?
I had to get one in his name because I'm going to give him medical marijuana. So if I do it under my name, he's not a patient. I am.
Then he's a drug dealer.
Yeah,
right.
And not just that, I'm giving drugs to a kid. So I got a medical marijuana card for Jaden. I went and talked to a doctor. I told him the situation, and he knew me from church. And he said, I'm going to give you one. And he's a medical marijuana doctor, goes to my church, so he gave me one. And next thing you know, he did it, and he's the one. If it wasn't for him giving me a card, I wouldn't even be where I'm at today. But I walk into 5 different ones. They won't let me in. I go into Harborside. They're filming for the show for Weed Wars, and I tell them the story. They're like, hey, we'll help you. If we do, will you be on the show? And I said, I'll do whatever it takes to tell about my son. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And next thing you know, I get it from them. I bought 40 bottles at once. And I said, or actually, I got 4 bottles at once the first time. It worked. I went home. I went to church that morning, and I remember telling my mom, I said, after I get home from church, Mom, I'm gonna give it to him. She's like, you're nuts. You're gonna kill your son. I said, my son's dying already.
Right.
I said, I said, I mean, she's like, you're nuts. And I've never been to a dispensary before this. I've used cannabis before, but I've never been to a dispensary. So I don't know how it is, what's going on. And I just seen a bottle that said CBD. This was before anyone tested anything, before anything. It just said CBD. There was no ratios, no numbers, nothing. The reason why there's ratios and everything now is because of our story. Because what happened was I got it and I used it for Jaden. The first time I gave it to him, he did great for 4 days. And the first day I gave it to him, I remember calling my mom, screaming, crying at the top of my lungs, Mom, come over. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to put Jaden in the pool right now. Jaden could not go in a swimming pool. He's had 300 grand mal seizures in the bathtub because of sudden temperature change. Because once he felt that cold water, he'd go into a grand mal seizure. So that was always a nightmare, picking up out of a bathtub where he's all wet, having a seizure. And that would happen frequently. So I put him in front of the house, and he's swimming, and the neighbors just come by screaming, crying, clapping. It was a very, very amazing moment for us because I not thought Jaden would ever be able to do that. At this time, my doctor had already given up on Jaden. I remember my doctor told me, I went into his office and I gave him a recommendation for speech therapy. I said, hey, if you sign this, I can get speech therapy for Jaden. My insurance is going to cover it. He said, I'm not going to sign it. I said, why not? Because Jaden's never going to walk. Jaden's never going to talk. Jaden's a mental retard. He straight up told me this word for word.
Who said this?
This is my doctor. This is my doctor at Stanford. His name is Dr. Olson. He said, "Love your son for who love your son for who he is." That's what he told me. And I remember him telling my ex-wife at the time, "Your husband's insane. He's crazy." Now Dr. Olson is retired. All his patients are at UCSF now, and they were trying to go somewhere that people are open-minded, helping save a child's life instead of being arrogant, and egotistical, and willing to open their eyes and save a child's life. And that's where it comes down to. It's about a person or the family and the children. Because when a child is sick, the whole family is sick. And not just that, even not just the parents, the siblings. You know, we lose a lot of family members that don't want to. I mean, I couldn't go to birthday parties with Jaden. I couldn't do anything with Jaden. You know, I was just had to take care of my son that was dying. So next thing you know.
So let's go back right there. You said for 4 days he did not have.
He did not have a seizure for 4 days.
Which you haven't never seen basically.
I've never seen him go 1 day without a seizure or without the twitches. You know, he just sits there all day long. He just sit there and twitch all day, or go head first into things and stuff like that. I I mean, we've had CC had stitches in his eyes, his nose, busted his nose where he had 2 black eyes from seizures. I mean, he's been through a lot, this kid. But he always wants to get up and just be a kid and play and have fun. And that's what the thing that hurts me the most. What I'm fighting for is give him the best quality of life that I can and make him happy as possible. He might not be a rocket scientist, but you know what? He's probably saved a lot more lives than any rocket scientist in the world. But not just that. I feel like, I remember asking God, why did you do this to me? Because I don't remember being that much of a bad person to see my son suffer like that. Because there's nothing in the world worse than seeing your child suffer, especially if you can't do nothing about it. And what I see now is he used me, because now there's millions of people that are begging for this medicine, trying this medicine. I mean, we in our facility now we have over 30,000 patients that are coming that want this medicine, but we have 10 families flying in from other countries. We have parents fighting all over the country, all over the world for this. He started to change, and people need to start opening their eyes. If it does, I always tell people, if it doesn't work, throw it away. Have you tried and change the rest of life like it changed mine?
That's it. Just try it. Why would you not try it? You said you saw your son die. The doc and I talk about it all the time. How would you not at least try it?
Yeah. After those 4 days, Jaden had a good 4 months. It was good and bad. Jaden's life isn't perfect, but at the same time, he was on 22 pills at the time. I weaned him off steripental. He stopped screaming and crying. And then after the 4 months, he was off steripental, but it stopped working the CBD, and I couldn't figure out why. So I went back for the second batch from Harborside, and I realized that I looked at the bottle, and I knew the color was different, and I knew something was wrong. There was no ratios, no numbers, no more. It just said CBD. So I started working with the D'Angelos, and they helped me figure out ratios and numbers. They hooked me up with their labs. Steep Hill Labs is amazing too. They helped us out a lot. So did SC Labs. But they helped us figure out ratios and numbers for Jaden, make sure the medicine didn't have any pesticides, yeast, or mold. And we worked really hard on getting a good, consistent medicine. There was even a company that was making medicine for Jaden. Once I helped him get successful, and he was on the front page at LA Times with me, he stopped making medicine for Jaden too. So I had to find someone else, and that's where we came across the group that helps us make the Jaden's juice.
This is Jaden's juice.
Yeah.
This is a ratio of 28 CBD to 1 THC.
Now, did you try different ratios, and then you narrowed down the 28 seemed to work best for you?
We tried different ratios. This is what we use as the CBD, but it's not the only thing we use. I use THC, and I do use THC for Jaden. You have to play around once in a while, especially as changes come. Like it's changing as he's growing. If he's teething, it's a neurological issue. There's a lot of different things. If he's going through withdrawals, you have to add a little more THC. Make sure it's an indica for us. Not just that, we have a lot of other things we're working on right now. We have a new biochemist we're working with now. He's on another level. I can't wait till everything starts with him. But we have a lot of different components we're going to be working on very soon, because it's not about a product. It's about finding something that works for saving people's lives. Because what my goal is it's not about, I didn't get in this for cannabis. I got in this to give back hope to the families, because it's not just me that went through wanting to commit suicide or dying. I hear this every single day of my life from parents from around the world. I remember one time I had a cop call me from New York and said, "Send me the medicine." I said, "I can't." I said, "You're a cop." I said, "You want me to send you the medicine?" He goes, "I'm that desperate." I said, I can't send it to you." I said, "But if you fly out here, I'll get it to you." So he flew out here. And when he flew out here, his kid's dying. Before he flew out here, he told me, he goes, "I'll be honest with you. I hope the plane crashes with me, my wife, and my kid in there, so we can just die all together and not deal with life."
Well, I mean, listen, you know,
and this is not the first. I hear this all the time, and I have families that come to my office, and we sit there and talk every day. I mean, I try not to cry 10 times a day. CBD is not the answer, and it's not just only CBD. The difference of our CBD and compared to other CBD is it's not hemp. Ours does have you were talking about it earlier. I'm not sure the show was on yet or not, but you had said it's the entourage effect, and absolutely it's the entourage effect. Ours is 1 milligram of THC. When you take out that 1 milligram of THC when it's straight hemp, you don't have the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and not just that. It's also a lot of the hemp is made with stalk and stem, so it's not made with the flower. We've done a lot of trial and error, and I noticed the flower is the best way to go because that's where everything is at. But a lot. Let me
just interject right here. Now it's not just those 5 states. Now there's 21 states that won't allow that.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question for you, Jason. Yeah. When you hear Chuck Rosenberg, the head of the DEA, say, "Listen, you want to legalize cannabis, but don't tell me it's medicine."
Yeah.
How do you respond?
The first thing I would say is, and why does the FDA have a patent on it? Why are you? That's what even scares me even more is. You're the federal government saying that it's illegal, but at the same time you have a federal government patent on it.
Right.
how? Why do we fund $40 million? I mean, there's 100 different whys. My best thing to say is I'd love to say bring anyone in your family member to me. If we can't help them in 30 days, then it's not medicine. But I guarantee anyone with any illness, we can figure something out to help them out. Bring your mom, your grandma, Chuck. Bring anybody. I'd love to. Let's try to help them. If it doesn't work, I get
Chuck
it.
doesn't have
Chuck, I don't
problem.
wish you ill, Chuck. I don't wish you or your family ill. But
Of course not. Absolutely not. Because
if
it's
you
the
do,
worst
Chuck,
thing in the world.
why don't you head up to Modesto and maybe see if this maybe could help you a
Now,
little
how
bit.
many-
Maybe it'll change your mind a little bit.
Jason, we've covered many stories on this show where, not Chuck personally, but various politicians who have lobbied and rallied against cannabis, then it happens to them. How many times we had the New Mexico guy, his back went out. The other guy had a kid who had epilepsy. Then they see it. Then all of a sudden they're a huge advocate. Why does it take that for them to see this?
Everybody needs a flip.
Can't they see it in somebody
Everybody's
else?
got to
I can
switch,
see
dude.
that video and say, okay, that's fine. What is it, heroin? Give it to him.
Dude, I was talking to Jason before the show. You see,
Well, that's
all
what
these
Jason was on. He was
people-
on name brand heroin. That's
That's
what
right.
it was. Name brand
Unbelievable.
heroin's okay.
That's and we talked about it before the show. It's legal to give these kids hydrocodone or
Yeah.
whatever, right, Doc?
I mean, yeah, we
Well,
have
they
a
were giving OxyContin to
3-year-olds.
3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Now, is that not
Oxycontin.
100 times
a
worse?
benzo to a 5-month-old. I mean, a benzo to a 5-month-old. Benzos are worse than heroin. I mean, I don't know why we just chop up some heroin, give it to a child. It's the same exact thing.
But
except it
God
has
forbid
name
you give them the
brand.
cannabis
Yeah.
or the CBD oil.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense at all.
And what's even scarier now is even in the music these days is there's a song, that Percocet song and stuff like that. It's so okay now to do, and it's brainwashing. This is so okay. This is the norm. It is not the norm. This is a dangerous drug that they're brainwashing people with, and once you get on it, for the rest of your life, you're going to suffer, or your body's going to suffer because you have these receptors and your body needs it. There's another thing you said earlier. You said about cannabis. You had mentioned that. The cannabis, you think that CBD, why does it help you out as in it helps out pain? I'm going to tell you a couple of things about that. Is if you have a neurological issue and you have pain, CBD does help it out, because what happens is you have CB receptors all over your body. The biggest receptor you have in your brain is called a CB1 receptor.
CB1, CB2 in the periphery.
Yeah. So what happens is with the neurons, they flow back and forth and communicate. They're communicating with CBD. It's not blocking a channel. There's no other medication in the world that makes the neurons flow back and forth and communicate. When you take a medication, one's a sodium channel blocker, one's a potassium channel blocker. They all have different blockers. Am I right or am I wrong? And when that happens, when you're blocking this channel, it's causing side effects. You're putting a chemical that's not supposed to be put in your body. The funny thing is we have a lot of Christians coming to me and saying, well, I'm scared. I don't want to go to hell for this. Well, so it's okay. And I ask them, they say, I don't want to do drugs. And first thing I ask them is what medications are you on? Well, I'm on OxyContin, Vicodin, methadone, this and that. So you're okay doing
those aren't
meth and
drugs.
doing all this stuff, and you're a Christian, that's okay. So you're telling me in the Bible it says don't use my plants, use my seeds. It doesn't say use my OxyContin, my Vicodin, my methadone, my surgeries and all that stuff. I give you all these plants, the seeds for food and medicine.
Now, which one do you think comes from God?
Yeah.
The one made in a lab
Yeah.
that kills people, or the one that grows outside
And you think
that
God
doesn't
made
kill
a
people?
mistake? I had recently a guy that just had a flu shot that had become half paralyzed from a flu shot, a 65-year-old from my church. And his son called me. He said, I want to use the Jaden juice for my dad, but he's fighting me. I said, shove it down his throat. He calls me about 2 days later. He gives it to him. Calls me 2 days later. He goes, Jason, you won't believe it. The first time I gave it to him, he woke up and started speaking for 4 hours. He hadn't spoke for 4 weeks. I swear to you. I swear to God, it's the honest
It's
truth.
not a medicine.
The next thing you know, he says, after he takes it, he goes, I don't care. I still don't want to take it, even though it's making me better, because I'm going to go to hell because I use this. He goes, Dad, he said, Dad, you're on.
What hell is this?
Yeah. He said, you're already in hell. So what he did was his uncle had to fly here from Germany because they sent him the video of how good he was doing on the cannabis. His uncle had to fly here from Germany, fight his father to make him take it. And now his father is taking it every day and his life's getting a million times better. I'm a Christian myself, but you know what? It's time to wake up. Time to open your eyes. Stop being so blind. The bishop from my church called me one day and he said, hey, when I first came out public with this, he said, everyone's going to talk trash about you. I said, let them talk trash about me. I go, wouldn't it be a sin if I didn't tell people this can help them? Yeah. Wouldn't it be a sin if I didn't help
That's
people with
the
this?
sin, not
and
helping.
you know what he told me? He said, you're absolutely right. Now he sends me patients. Him, my priest, they all send me patients. They say, hey, listen, you need to go see Jason.
Have you heard about this drug, Epidiolex?
Epidiolex.
Epidiolex.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, it is. They say it's natural, but it has to be some kind of synthetic to keep that.
Right,
keep
keep
that
the
exact
patent on
number, but not just that. Keep that number exactly right every single time. This is a plant. And what they're doing is they must be altering it somewhere or another. I do know someone doing a study right now, a doctor that has contacted me that said he has 40 patients on Jaden Juice and he has 80 patients on Epidiolex. He said Epidiolex you're seeing about a 30% success rating, but you're seeing about 20% having the opposite effect because it's only CBD. And that's not the way the body likes it.
Agreed. You got it. Yep.
But not just that, Epidiolex is only CBD. It's going to the same liver channel as the CY450 as a benzo. So a lot of the children are on benzo. So what's happening is causing an adverse reaction because it's too much CBD. So he told me that the patients that the 40 patients he has on Jaden Juice, he's seeing about 80 to 85% success rating with no bad side effects, where he has been seeing some bad side effects with the other medication.
You need, like the doc says, the entourage effect. You got to let these things work together.
You got to get a little CBN
They got to be
there,
in concert. It's okay. THC isn't going to kill you either, just a little bit.
Another thing I was going to tell you is CBD is like we're talking about too. Is I have some kids that use no CBD. They use THC or they use THCA. Or they use a much lower ratio.
What sort of ailments are those for?
Even epilepsy. But see what it is. Let me tell you what it is with our patients. Is what I've noticed is everybody's body is different. Okay, studies. God knows who's in the study. Just for instance, I'm 220 pounds. If I take one shot of alcohol, I'll be dancing on your table. My sister is half my weight. If she drinks a whole bottle, she won't even get drunk. So that tells you that everybody's body is different. So it doesn't matter. So that's why whenever we start any cannabis, I start at a low dose. I do one at a time to see what works. But what we do is we do a trial and error. Some people figure it out in 1 day. Some people figure it out in a week. Some people figure it out in a month. But there's like a few kids, they don't do any CBD because CBD with their medication causes adverse reactions. So what we do is we give them THC. And what we, even with kids with epilepsy, I have one little girl that takes 15 drops of THC 3 times a day. If I took 15 drops of THC 3 times a day, I'd be asleep all day.
Right.
But for her, it's perfect. You know, and she's only 5 years old. So it tells you everybody's body is different. It's not just CBD. The CBD has become a gimmick now to sell a product and say, hey, this is what it is. Right. And I cannot approve that as a parent that's trying to save my son's life or anyone else's life. It's trial and error. You're going to have to do some homework.
Hey, listen, the doc tells every one of his patients, go down there and get 8 different strains, take 1 gram, go through them.
What should I take? I said, I have no idea. Yeah. I have no idea how you're going to respond.
You have to try.
I don't know what they got. I don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Buy a bunch, little amounts. Yeah. Go take it home, check it out, see what you like.
And get the extremes. Get the heavy indica, get the heavy sativa, get the hybrids. Find out what works for you. And you're going to have to.
What drives me insane is these 75-year-old, 80-year-old people coming in and saying, listen, I'm going to do it, but I don't want to smoke it. I just want to take edibles. I said, listen, I'm not really sure that's the right way to start. Why don't you just get a nice vapor pen, figure out what you like, what you don't like.
I think that seems druggy to them.
Yeah, I understand, but I just don't think committing to a 4-hour edible experience as your first endeavor or first entry point into the cannabis world.
And that's why tinctures are the best way to go.
Tinctures are good, right?
Let me tell you why is because you can microdose at 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop.
Where can we find you on social media so people can follow you?
We have Jason and Jaden's Journey on Facebook. We also have Jaden's Journey as our store. We also have a Weed Maps website was Jaden's Journey is our dispensary. If anyone wants to call and have any questions, set up appointments. We do free consultations. Our phone number is 209-581-7700.
It's not that far away. Right. It's not that far away. And if you're out there, if you're a parent, you're watching this, and you think and you're afraid,
don't
give him a call.
Just
give him a call.
Give him a call. Download our podcast. We're on iTunes. We're on iHeartRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next week.